I understand exactly what Mike was going through because they did exactly the same thing to me. I was arrested at the protest in Canberra last year and set up and falsely charged by the AFP. Now, it was crucial that I filmed that because the AFP conveniently lost their body cam film.
Are you filming me?
Sorry?
Oh shit. Are you filming me? You were filming me, right? I've got body work. Can I ask you that film not be deleted because I'll use it for what? Yeah.
When we got to court and we asked, where's your body cam film? He said, oh, funny thing happened, it went flat, so I don't have any body cam film. That allowed 3 AFP officers to collude to make up a story about what they'd seen. That story being that I'd deliberately rammed this road worker and injured him. And they had no idea that I was then going to play film that showed that did not happen.
Avi Yemini for Rebel News in Melbourne outside the Australian Federal Police headquarters. I'm here today to bring you a story from the Freedom Convoy in Canberra that's still going on today. Guys, thank you for joining us. Tell us from the beginning, for those that haven't been following the whole time, what happened? Tell us.
Yeah, back in February last year, there was the convoy to Canberra. Paul ended up going down with his big truck and taking a whole heap of donated food items. And then when he was down there on the Saturday morning before the big march into Canberra, he was asked if he would join in with a couple of other trucks that were driving to one of the stages. There was 2 stages. There was a big one down near Old Parliament House, and then another one up near New Parliament House, which was where he was asked to travel to, and was in convoy with those trucks as well.
So this was the convoy to Canberra that was part of the Freedom Convoy that was protesting all the mandates at the time. What happened when you got there?
Yeah, when he got there, the trucks were getting turned off at a sort of point that seemed to be, got them all a bit confused because they thought they were supposed to be going straight up towards the stage area. And then Paul had a YouTube guy, Aussie Cossack, came along and started interviewing his passenger, and by the time that sort of finished, he got a bit separated from the other trucks. Cossack asked him if he wanted to go up towards the top of Parliament, which was about where he was trying to get to with the stage up there, and he continued up there with Cossack, and then up towards that area things got a bit messy. Police sort of had a bit of a change of mind after first letting him through, and there was some bit of confusion with directions, it would appear. Shortly thereafter ended up smashing his window, pepper spraying him while he was sort of still not even had time to come to a stop. There was no real warning given or anything like that. Yeah, he ended up getting out the passenger side of the truck, and they kept trying to turn the air brakes back off, which is like your handbrake. So he kept trying to turn that back on, eventually gave up, got out the passenger side, and got the dumped the air tanks to engage the brakes so that the truck couldn't roll over people on the ground, and hung around the truck for about an hour while trying to get rid of glass out of his eye and feet and face and everything, and trying to get pepper spray out of his eyes. About an hour later, went to go over and talk to the police nearby, and where he'd sort of been around the truck the whole time, and they ended up deciding to arrest him. So then he went up in jail for a couple of days, thankfully got out on bail. They threw a few charges at him, and then the morning of the bail hearing added another one and upped another, and then about 8 weeks after that, when he was trying to get his truck released, they decided that they were going to confiscate it permanently, and threw some additional couple of charges, added another 15 years of potential time to the whole thing.
I understand exactly what Mike was going through because they did exactly the same thing to me. I was arrested at the protest in Canberra last year and set up and falsely charged by the AFP. So it all started with a bogus traffic stop. So we were moving at walking pace in heavy traffic past what they called a roadblock. No flashing lights, nothing visible. I had a road worker jump out in front of me at the at the so-called roadblock. I stopped, he marched up to the front of my vehicle, punched the bonnet, and then started yelling loudly at me. I was immediately surrounded by multiple Australian Federal Police officers who just happened to be there at the scene watching for some reason. They accused me of assaulting him with my motor vehicle and arrested me and took me to the Canberra Watch House and jailed me for 6 hours. And my head's spinning, I've got no idea what's going on, I've just, had my vehicle attacked at a so-called roadblock. But it all became clear when they gave me the bail conditions, because the bail conditions said, you will leave Canberra, you will stop protesting. For a traffic offence, right? So I said, no, that doesn't work for me. I'm here to protest, so I'm not going to accept bail. So they sent me to jail, and they locked me up in solitary confinement for 6 days in the Canberra jail before I got a proper lawyer with a proper bail hearing who got me out. I was then on bail for a year before I had a 3-day trial in Canberra late last year, which I won.
How'd you win? What was it about?
Well, by that time I was charged with 4 serious criminal offences with a total time in jail of 10 years, the worst of them being aggravated assault with a motor vehicle occasioning actual bodily harm. The only bodily harm was my vehicle was dented by the fist of the road worker. Now, the way I got off that charge is I filmed what the AFP did and said to me at the scene, and the 2 key things were, number 1, the first police officer who marched up to my window said,
The gentleman's blocking traffic here. He was standing there and you almost struck him. We were just there, we saw you. You almost ran this gentleman over.
and luckily I was filming that. Now, when I took that to court, that was pivotal in my defence, because by the time we got to court, the AFP claimed that I did hit that man deliberately. So me playing the film of them admitting that I didn't even contact him was crucial. Now, it was crucial that I filmed that because the AFP conveniently lost their body cam film. They were also filming me, and I twice confirmed that at the scene. I said to the AFP officer,
Are you filming me?
Sorry?
Are you filming me? You were filming me, right? I've got body work. Can I ask you that film not be deleted because I'll use it for court? Yeah.
when we got to court and we asked, where's your body cam film? He said, oh, funny thing happened, it went flat, so I don't have any body cam film. That allowed him, because there was no evidence of what really happened, he thought, that allowed 3 AFP officers to collude to make up a story about what they'd seen. That story being that I deliberately rammed this road worker and injured him. And they had no idea that I was then going to play film that showed that did not happen. They tried to put me in jail for 10 years and they did it by making up evidence. They destroyed the evidence that I was innocent, their body cam, and then they colluded to make up a story that said that I was guilty. Shocking, isn't it?
Did it run to trial?
Absolutely. I was in trial. I had a 3-day trial. It cost me $25,000 to prove my innocence because the AFP deliberately set me up and lied in court.
And thrown out by the judge?
Correct. I was not guilty on all charges.
So in total, how many charges are we looking at?
Well, they put it up to a total of 6, and then to be even more difficult, back in end of last year, they randomly added a second count of the drive at police charge, which is the 15-year one, so it puts it up to about 40 years now.
Wow. How are you feeling about it all, Paul?
It's been a very difficult journey with what's going on. It's just so hard to believe that I guess I'm a bit lost for words. It just seems insane to me with what they're doing and how they're going about it. And also in between then and now, unfortunately, my mother passed away, so it's been pretty difficult.
Sorry to hear.
On top of that,
He was stuck dealing with legal hearings and stuff at the time and hadn't been able to, well, after the convoy down to there, he was supposed to be going straight through to mum and dad's and seeing mum, who already wasn't too well, and then got caught up with 9 months of legal dramas. And he, as it was, I had to give him a call and tell him to, he was in Melbourne at the time, and I had to give him a call and say, you better get here. That was literally 10 minutes after a hearing finished, said, "You better get over here quick, smart, because I don't think Mum's going to make it." And he jumped on his bike about half an hour later and got there about midnight. And thankfully one night Mum came good enough to sort of recognise him and have a chat with him. She was the first time I'd seen her in a couple of years, and yeah, that was pretty tough because he was obviously pretty upset, and the first thing she said was, when she realised, she said, "Don't worry about it, Paul, don't cry, we'll get through this." And of course, a couple of days later, she was dead. Anyway.
So sorry to hear that. It's it sounds like you've been through a lot. Can I ask you straight? Some of these charges, like driving towards police, trying to run. Is that what you were really trying to do?
He was simply thought he was supposed to be driving to the stage area, which they had permission to be getting to. As far as you asked about the drive at police, what really happened was he's driving along, and he's got, at that time, police had been escorting him along, and then they've gone from walking alongside either side of the truck to suddenly they've stepped in front of the truck with no warning. Now he's only doing walking pace and stepped in front of the truck and started just walking backwards in front of the truck. Problem is a big truck, you don't have a lot of visibility. He can't see much more than their heads, can't work out what they're doing. Yeah, and apparently as a result of them stepping in front of a moving heavy vehicle, that equals him trying to drive at police intentionally.
So it's being heard in the Supreme Court. The next mention is on May 1st, where they're going to set a trial date.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be a few days, if not a few weeks, this trial. For people that do want to follow this, is not a fight the fines case. You're doing this on your own. If people want to find details about it and want to potentially help you in your legal fight, where can they find those details?
Yeah, if you go to freedomtruck.au, that'll take you straight through to a Fundly fundraising page. And we're pretty desperate to try and get some assistance there. Paul's a disability pensioner and doesn't have a lot of funds left after all of this, and at the moment he's been having to rely on legal aid since the end of last year. Before that he was self-represented for about 6 months, but court weren't too keen on allowing that to continue. So he's sort of dealing with legal aid, but when it comes to a trial, it would be definite advantage to have an actual lawyer representing him instead of legal aid, I think.
Sadly, I've learnt that we now live in a third world country, and one of the characteristics of a third world country is you cannot trust public institutions. You can't trust politicians, you can't trust the police, and you must always film interactions with the police. They will lie, they will make up things, they will destroy evidence, and they'll set you up if it suits them and if it suits their masters, which are, of course, the government.
If you think this story is as important as I do, make sure to like, comment, but most importantly, share it far and wide, because I can promise you the mainstream media, they're not giving them a fair go. And then head over to fightthefines.com.au to see the other cases that are still going on for our health in the courts around the country. Fightthefines.com.au. Watch and share all their stories, and if you're willing and able to, help contribute to some of the fights still happening today. Fightthefines.com.au.